Welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogram Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. I follow my guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Hello and welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast. I'm Dr. Supatra Tovar, and I'm so excited to have CEO and founder of Soulful Soil Farms, Tina Davis, with us today. Tina, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So excited to pick Tina's brain today. Tina and I met while we were doing some donation drive work for Eaton fire survivors, and I was so impressed by Tina. We're going to be talking a little bit about that towards the end, but before we get into anything, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Tina, and then we'll get into our questions. Tina Marie Davis is the CEO and founder of Soulful Soil Farms, a social enterprise committed to empowering diverse communities through sustainable farming practices. Tina believes that gardening is a powerful tool for social justice and independence. Through Soulful Soil Farms, she is helping individuals and communities reconnect with the land, learn how to grow their own food, and achieve greater economic independence. Her work bridges the gap between environmental sustainability, food security, and social equity. Tina, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me.
Yes, thank you. As soon as I found out that Tina was doing this, I knew I had to have her on the podcast because I really believe that there's a lot of issues in our food system, especially with produce. And we're seeing a lot of, E. coli and a lot of contamination of our produce. And so I thought it would be so good to have Tina on to talk about what we can do as individuals to empower ourselves to start gardening in whatever way is possible. But before we get into that, Tina, you've created Soulful Soil Farms to promote social justice through gardening. How and why did you become passionate about this cause?
Well, I grew up on a farm in Compton. There's Richland Farms, in Richland Farms. So growing up in that atmosphere, it kind of was full circle for me. As an adult, I spent most of my years in corporate in the healthcare industry. I was on the clinical side, and then I was on the business admin. So I got to kind of see both sides of that world. And I really wanted to step away and still work in the form of healthcare, but not, healthcare as we know it. And gardening was just the answer.
Wow.
Yeah.
What form of healthcare were you working in?
I started in clinical. I was a CNA. I was in restorative home. Then I did skilled nursing. And I was in school for my LVN, going to work my way up to RN. And I get attached easily. So the first time someone that I was, helping or working with passed away, it completely changed my spectrum. I couldn't. I was taking my work home. I was taking my work home, and so I wanted to stay in healthcare. So I switched over to business admin, and most of that time I did prescription, I did claims, and I worked my way up to director.
Wow!
Yeah.
So the transition to gardening.
Mm-hmm.
Why gardening in particular?
Gardening is a form of healthcare. It's the original form of healthcare, actually. If we go back to our roots, there weren't CVS's and Rite Aids, on every corner. We went to the earth. The earth provides absolutely everything that we need. So I started doing a deep dive, and it just kind of, I went down a rabbit hole and never came out. It never came out.
Well, tell people a little bit about, because I think I understand that food is medicine, and I think people are really starting to grasp that.
Yeah.
But really define for people why gardening is healthcare.
Gardening is healthcare. One, it's organic. And again, because the earth provides everything we need. More specifically, I deal a lot with herbs. I'm learning remedies. I bought a book of herbs to learn, and then to also teach, different herbs that we can grow that is for natural healing. I have high blood pressure. My dad has high blood pressure. A sister of mine has high blood pressure. So I started to, okay, so how can I heal my body naturally? How can I treat my high blood pressure without taking the medicine? Because again, I was in the pharmaceutical industry. It's a $1 billion industry, and what I've learned is, regardless of what cures are out there, like, the money is in the medicine, it's not in the cure. And working in that field, I got to see, kind of like the dark side of that. And so I know firsthand how poisonous those pills can be. And I wanted to really figure out how I can live my life with high blood pressure, or treating it naturally, holistically, organically. And so gardening, that was like literally the answer, again, because the earth provides everything we need. Now it's a matter of growing it, caring for it, and then more importantly, teaching it.
Yes. And as a dietitian in the hospital, we would treat plenty of people with high blood pressure. And we would do that through food and recommendations, primarily the Mediterranean and DASH diet combined. It's called the MIND diet, is what is the most currently recommended diet to naturally treat your high blood pressure. And of course, that includes plentiful fruits and vegetables. Yes. Herbs, as well as massive reduction in sodium. You guys, we get way too much sodium, especially in processed food, but also in takeout food and fast food. So I am totally 100% with you on that. Now, gardening itself has long been associated with health and sustainability, but you see it as a form of social justice. I do as well. Can you just elaborate on the connection for our listeners?
Yeah, gardening is a form of resistance. It challenges social inequality. It challenges food deserts. And it really puts the tools in our hands that we need. There are so many underserved communities, particularly communities of color, where we don't have access to fresh food, land to grow, but there's a McDonald's in every corner, and you'll see that when the demographic changes, and you'll see Whole Foods as opposed to liquor stores, or Sprouts as opposed to donut shops, and so because it is a form of resistance, again, teaching it is where I think the key is. Because you're educating the community, and those who are willing to learn. It's a life skill. You're really changing a life. You know what I mean? And the fact that it is a form of resistance, I think everyone should have that skill in their back pocket.
Yes, because if you were to really define the resistance, it would be against corporations, essentially, that try to provide us food that does not actually nourish or heal us. It's really designed to keep us kind of addicted to the food, really allowing only those options if you're living in an area that's a food desert. Yeah. And you talked about not having accessibility to land.
Yes.
So how do you help people address that? For me personally, I'm starting to grow my own produce. I don't have, I live in a condo, so I've gotten into hydroponic gardening.
Nice.
Which, if you look at the outside of my windows, I might look like I might be a pot farmer. I'm assuring you I'm growing vegetables, even though it's legal here. But how do you help people in these food deserts if they don't have land? Can you guide them towards accessible community gardens?
Yes.
Teach them hydroponics? What do you do?
Education is key. A lot of people aren't aware. One, you don't need a lot of land. You don't need land, honestly, period, to grow. You can grow on your balcony. You can live in an apartment and grow. There's vertical growing. There's You can do raised beds. There's raised beds on wheels, like mobile. Like there's so many different ways. You can do herbs on your windowsill. You can get a little 5-gallon bucket in the corner and grow lettuce. Like you can start anywhere. My thing is just start, and if you don't know how, then there's resources. We can provide resources of, like you said, different community gardens. Will come out and teach you. Will look at your space, give you some suggestions based on what it is you want to grow. But there's so many different ways to just start. It doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't. I started in a little patio. Now I have a backyard, and my garden is full of full of crops. And now I'm gonna start working my front yard. But I started on a patio. On a windowsill, so there you don't need a lot of space. It's really about just doing the research, knowing what resources are available to you, what community gardens are available to you, and what community is available to you.
Yes. I mean, for me, I got a few different little hydroponic units from Amazon. I grow my own lettuce, kale, spinach. I have all sorts of herbs like basil. I have scallions.
Nice.
I have cilantro, which, oh my goodness.
The smell is amazing, right?
If you have had store-bought cilantro and you grow your own, there's no comparison. I'm growing tomatoes. I have little yellow squashes starting to grow and some zucchinis. I'm like so proud of it. I call it like praying to my garden altar. I'll like kneel in front of me like, hello, little planties. How are you? Please grow for me. I love it.
Yes.
And I do think it does free you. We can't necessarily always rely on our food system.
Right.
Plus the nutrients are missing. Our soil is not plentiful enough to give us the vitamins and minerals that we really need. So growing your own food can be so empowering and so healthful for your body. So tell us about the work that you do with communities to encourage the practice of gardening. How do you get to people and encourage this and work with them?
A lot of people have learned about me through word of mouth and our social media. I started off partnering with Music Changing Lives, which is a big organization in San Bernardino. They have a 2.5-acre piece of land that I manage, and that gives me the opportunity to have that hands-on every day outside of my own garden, of course. And then you get people who will reach out through social media, people who will drive by the garden, my business cards. But I manage the garden out there. I had someone reach out to me about revitalizing a garden in the city of Paris. Collectively with other organizations, we've built over 15 community gardens in parks and recreations, and that's just with the youth alone. So it's kind of by like word of mouth, people start to see. And I feel like gardening is starting to kind of trend. I just really hope that it's one that lasts,
Yes.
But it's we're getting pretty busy.
I love it. So it's just really kind of grassroots through social media, through people hearing about you. Yeah. And then you're helping to build these gardens in their different communities.
Yes.
So 15, give us a kind of a little geographical picture. Don't have to name them all.
That's okay. Most of them are parks in LA County. There are about 4 in the Inland Empire. But a big part of those were at the LA Parks and Recreation. So, LA is huge, but it's also very dissected. So there's different parts of LA that we've been able to erect gardens at. And we're doing it again this year.
Oh, I love this. So in your experience, what's been the biggest barrier to getting diverse communities involved in gardening and sustainable farming?
The biggest barrier would have to be, for us specifically, access to just land. We were blessed again to be able to work with Josiah and Music Changing Lives in that 2.5 acres of land. There's another piece of land in Moreno Valley that's about 8 acres that we're working on. But for us specifically, access to land. Outside of that, generalizing, I would say sustaining sustaining has been probably one of the biggest barriers that I've seen, because, it's fun to plant and play in soil and, watch the seeds start to grow, and you see the seedlings, and then there's pulling weeds, and there's, making sure irrigation is set, and there's making sure it's getting proper sunlight, and making sure companion planting is done properly. So there's work that goes into it. And once the fun part is done, sometimes it's hard to keep communities engaged in maintaining the garden through its process, so that it can continue to thrive, grow, and feed. So we get the community involved, but it's some people don't realize the work that goes into it, I guess. And after the fun part is over, it's kind of like, okay, we still got we still got work to do. Let's get out there and let's pull some weeds. Like, there's steps and processes to keep it thriving. And sometimes you lose people. People are too busy or tired after work, or homework with the kids. So access and maintaining has been a challenge. Yes. In some areas, yeah.
Well, what's one success story that, people have, overcome the drudgery of the weed pulling? What's been their, bountiful yield?
Success stories, there's a couple. One particular that stands out. So there are kids that come and volunteer in San Bernardino, and they volunteer once a month. They work for a week, Urban Conservation Corps. And for one of those kids, it was his first time gardening. Mm-hmm. And so he stuck to me like glue. And so, we went plot by plot. I was explaining what each plot was, what we were growing. I explained seasons. And he was so intrigued. So when I saw him the following month, he just had story after story after story. He got his mom involved in gardening. His mom had an ailment, a health condition that they started researching and Googling what they could grow to help her naturally. And it was literally like a proud mama moment, kind of, because reaching to adults is one thing, but reaching to the youth is a completely different dynamic. I have, young adults as kids and young adults, but they're, getting them to connect and understand the importance of gardening. It's not just, planting some seeds and playing in dirt. It's way bigger than that. So once you get the youth to connect, it just kind of changes, it shifts things for you. So that was probably one of the proudest moments.
Oh, I love that. Well, what role do you think urban farming and gardening plays in combating food deserts in particular, but ensuring food security? So, what do you think is the most important part about farming and gardening in terms of combating these food deserts?
I would say education. Education would probably be the most important, because you want to understand why we're doing it, what we're doing, the outcome, and again, the maintenance of it. There's a lot of different components. And when we teach on the history of Black farmers, so we make sure that we tap into our culture and our roots in our teachings. But the education part of it is probably going to be the most dynamic, because again, it's a life skill. That's saying you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, you feed him for life. Mm-hmm. It's literally the same thing with gardening. We've had a couple of situations now where we couldn't 100% rely upon the food that's provided, in the grocery stores. Tissue was, flying off the shelves. You couldn't find food in it. It kind of definitely should shift our view on things. And understanding, even if we're starting small, like I said, a couple of herbs, a couple of vegetables, you don't need a lot of space. The educating the community with that dynamic, that this is a life skill that is absolutely needed from 8 to 80, I think is the biggest factor.
Absolutely. So educate me. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm growing. What else can you grow? What would you suggest for somebody who just has an indoor space or a patio or both, but it's not a large space? What can they grow in a smaller space?
Small areas.
That yields enough.
Lettuce is always a good one. Lettuce is always, there's so many different varieties, but lettuce is always a good one. Tomatoes, and it can be any kind of variety. If they don't have space, they can do cherry tomatoes, heirloom tomatoes, steak tomatoes. There's so many different varieties of different vegetables. Onions are always good. Garlic is a good one. Ginger is also a good one, and these are small. You don't need a lot of room for these.
How would you grow the onions and the garlic? What would you recommend
As far as
like pots out on the patio?
You can. It depends. So we kind of vet every situation. So everyone's situation is different. If you're in like an apartment or a condo, small patio, you can do for like the herbs. You can do window. If you have a window, like a nice size window, windowsills. If you have a patio, I would just say small plants. If you have enough room, I would say do like a 5-pound tub, a 5-foot tub. And then for like the deeper vegetables, like if you want to do something that grows rooted, like potatoes, you can do small potatoes. I would do that in like a 5-gallon tub. Outside of that, get you some 4-inch rounds on the patio, on your windowsill, and give them some little water, a little sunlight, a little love. And you're thriving. So herbs, to answer your question, herbs, yes. Lettuce, tomatoes, onions, ginger. Depending on the space, you can kind of move into cucumbers, those vines. So you would need a little room. But again, it depends on what you're working with.
Yeah, I realized about the vining.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
The cucumbers. We're really going places.
Yeah. They're gonna vine.
Oh, it was amazing, and I love. It's like a little creature, seriously, because they've got these little tendrils.
Yep.
And then they like grasp onto things, and then they're. Yeah. It's got its own life, I tell you.
They literally do. And talk to your plants. They will talk back to you.
I do. I tell you. I kneel at the altar of my plants and I talk to them. And actually, they've actually done research that plants will recognize the person's voice and even move toward them.
Yes.
They know their mommies.
Yes.
It is so amazing.
They're living, breathing.
Yes.
Creatures.
Yes. Well, we could go on and on and on, but we're out of time for this half of this podcast episode. But we are coming back because I am picking her brain some more, and she knows all things gardening. And I think really it is a form of social justice, and we should be thinking about how we can make ourselves independent. If you look back to, World War II, they had victory gardens, and that was, another form of independence and a way that you could make yourself sustain through something as difficult as a war. So I highly recommend everybody come back for the second episode. And thank you so much for joining us. And we will be back for the second half with founder and CEO of Soulful Soil Farms, Tina Davis. Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Insight Podcast. Please remember, the contents shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Insight Podcast tab. And follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.